making wine in Greece, it like totally recalibrated what I thought about quality. Because I brought a bunch of California wines that I was really proud of. And the winemaker, Dimitri, he would say, Andrew, these wines are not important. And I was like, what? What is that? What is it? I've never heard that word to describe. And he'd say, you will not remember it. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're listening to the Vint podcast, bringing you expert interviews, alternative market insights, and exclusive access to the world of wine and spirits investing. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Vint podcast. My name is Brady, joined by Billy on video this time for the first time. This is our first video podcast episode. If you're listening on audio, you're not going to miss anything, but if you are on YouTube and watching us, or anywhere else for that matter, you'll get a little bit more in-depth view and be able to put a face to a name for the first time maybe. Billy, what's it like being on video?
Yeah, no, our software we're using is actually calling it a virtual studio. So for once we are together
in studio together,
as you've been promising everyone. For me, it doesn't make a difference really, because I realized we're always looking at each other on video because we've been doing it on Zoom.
Yep.
I'm just excited to be able to reach more people on YouTube as well, because everybody's able to kind of listen to a podcast, but sometimes people can discover us on YouTube. So that'll be great.
Yeah, so my favorite podcasts too, I listened to them for many months and then went to YouTube and saw their video version and was totally thrown off by what the people looked like versus what their voices sounded like. So curious to see if that's an experience that people have. But yeah, glad to be here. And we have a interesting episode, or kind of a unique episode, in that this is our first time that we've tasted wines live on the podcast with a producer. So we're, I guess, with in this case, a wine brand owner. But yeah, this was a unique experience.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be something really exciting for the listeners to hear. I referenced a book in there called Wine Wars 2, but this episode is all about it's all about taking the business view of wine. It's really interesting to think about, while the stories and the single vineyards and all of that are really interesting, and where my nerdy wine passion lies. For most people, their touch point with wine is this affordable, approachable, large scale wines. And we wanted to talk to somebody who won 40 Under 40 from Wine Enthusiasts. I mean, he's working to craft these really interesting wines.
Yeah, Andrew Nelson, who's our guest today, like Billy said, was 40 Under 40 tastemaker named by Wine Enthusiast in 2020 during the pandemic. And Billy said wines are super affordable, super approachable. And when we say affordable, under that $25, $20 range even. And yeah, really interesting expressions of a couple different places of the wines that we tasted today. Paso Robles, Washington State, and kind of Walla, and just Central Coast generally with one of the other labels. Yeah. So yeah, it was a good kind of tour through the portfolio. WarRoom Cellars is the name of Andrew Nelson's kind of selection of 6 different labels that are under that brand name. And so it was really cool to hear from him and have him elaborate on his approach to building a brand, which is basically putting the customers first and thinking more about what is the customer of this particular label that we're trying to acquire. What do they most like about that label, and how can we amplify that?
Yeah. And what I thought was really interesting is the brands run the gamut from certain wines that he's seen and thought they were bold and interesting, and then over back to brands with heritage, like Bonnie Doon, for example, that was founded by Randall Graham, who was basically one of the pioneers of Rhone varieties in California and the US. He's one of the original Rhone Rangers, and he's just known for his deep care and passion, not only for Rhone varietals, but low intervention winemaking for decades now, that's now popular. So he's able to kind of run the gamut between these heritage wines, as they call them, and some of these newer wines, and really have consistent quality throughout and tell these interesting stories. So it's cool to hear.
Yeah, and I think these are you can put him in the category of steward of the wine industry, especially here in the US. I think that people like Andrew are able to introduce people to new wines, new varieties in a way that really difficult, I think. And so from maybe the investment perspective, when you think about Rhone varieties being brought to the US and amplified more, and I think they're continuing to grow in providence and understanding or prominence and understanding among people, that's, I think, directly translates to our business, because that just increases the potential for there to be understanding about varieties that maybe are more prominent in France being understood here in the US, and thus continuing to expand that market. I think it's all interwoven and seeks to support the, what we do as a business, I think, as well.
Yeah, and these wines are all perfectly placed at that price point that's about, maybe you're drinking the $2 chucks or everything under $10 in the world, but you're looking for something better. This offers that quality step up, because they do work hard to source wines and grapes that are quality, but it allows that step up. So I think the more that we can get people to enjoy wine as a beverage and keep them engaged with affordable options, the more they're going to think to maybe invest, or they might bump up to that higher end wine that is maybe single vineyard from overseas. So this is an integral part of the wine industry, and I think it's nice that there are people so passionate about it. He's one of the more passionate guys we talked about in a long time. So
for sure. Yeah. And you're an art guy, and the labels, I think, are really cool, really beautiful, really premium, honestly. Like, even just the paper and the detailing on the labels is really cool. And so I appreciate that. Just as a consumer, I want to enjoy every part of the wine, and the bottle doesn't need to be excluded from that. I think sometimes we think the best wines are the ones that just have Calibri font with a white paper, but these are really interesting and fun wines to sit around, I think, and talk about.
Awesome.
Do you want to intro Andrew? Yeah, we've talked a little about Andrew. I don't know if you want to intro a little bit more about his background.
No, I think we can do that right before we end here, but why don't we touch on a little bit about our Vint stuff, just some updates from our side. We sent out our yearly letter, let everybody know that, a little bit of delay in collections since our last one is purely down to the SEC and our filing process just taking a little longer than it usually does. So we're working through that right now to hopefully we have assets ready to go as soon as we work through with them. In the meantime, we're going to have our Q4 report out, hopefully by the time of this publication, if not soon after. And we'll give you our thoughts on the wine industry's performance over the last quarter. We'll touch on this a little bit more next episode, as well as a light outlook towards 2023, which we can also share next episode.
Yeah, we're excited for 2023. We'll continue to talk about it for, I think, in the next couple episodes. We'll throw in some things here and there with what we're looking forward to. We've talked a little bit about it towards the end of 2022, changes to our product, new offerings that will be coming to the platform as we get this next batch, like you said, of 17 offerings, which should by the middle or end of this month. All of those are things to look forward to, and we'll expand on them over time.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a really exciting year, and I'm ready to kick off. But I think, and to your point now, I just wanted to make sure we touched on those, but we can give Andrew his proper intro.
Yeah, Andrew Nelson is the managing partner at WarRoom Cellars. He's based in SLO, San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, there you go.
County. I messed that up later in the podcast, but Central Coast of California. He was named Wine Enthusiast Magazine's 40 Under 40 Tastemaker back in 2020. He's certainly a visionary in this category that we've been talking about, and just a lot of fun to talk to. So I hope you enjoy our conversation with Andrew. Hey, Andrew, thanks for joining us today. We're excited to taste with you and hear about what you're working on.
Hey, Brady. Hey, Billy. I'm excited to be here, too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, sure. Why don't you give us a little bit of background about you? And I know you started drinking at a young age. Tell us about that.
I've always loved wine. My brother and I started making beer. It was our first project. Before we were 21, we brewed the beer for a wedding, the R&C Burger Brew, 200 bottles, and we made a label and everything. And I just remember being terrified the night before the wedding that it wasn't going to be carbonated enough or people wouldn't like it. In college, I was ag business at Cal Poly on the Central Coast, and with a minor in wine and viticulture. And I did my first harvest in 2007 with Edna Valley, and I just got the wine bug. I was the inoculator, so I would hydrate the yeast, and I'd have to shave every day and wear a respirator, and just walking around with the winemakers, tasting the tanks. I loved it. From there, I went to the Firestone Brewery. I was the night brewer, the 9 to 5:30 shift, and I was there for about a year. And then traveled to Greece. My buddy and I, we planned the Endless Harvest. And if there's any young listeners out there, I encourage you to travel in the wine business for sure. So we planned Greece, Austria, South Africa, New Zealand, and then back to California, but I only went as far as Greece. I fell in love with a Cal Poly girl, and it was a bad decision. I came back. I regret not doing that. I'm very happily married now. So making Retsina in Greece at a biodynamic winery, super cool experience.
Can you actually talk about that first? Like, Retsina traditionally has the pine resin or different spices added to it. So what was that process like?
If you haven't heard of it, you should definitely try it. It's a traditional Greek wine called Retsina. It's made from a grape called Sabat, which is a acidic white grape, aromatic, delicious. And you ferment it on pine sap. And the pine sap would come wrapped in these plastic sheets, and it looked like sugar cane. It was like furry, it had fiber in it, and you would shovel it in and press on top of it and ferment. And I never really did develop a palate for Retsina. You've tried it, Billy? You've had this before?
Yeah, a few times. It's definitely an acquired taste, but it's interesting.
And I think I had it too when I was there, and I put it out of my mind.
Yeah. What was so interesting to me, it basically, the whole experience of making wine in Greece, it like totally recalibrated what I thought about quality. Because I brought a bunch of California wines that I was really proud of. And the winemaker, Dimitri, he would say, Andrew, these wines are not important. And I said, what is that? What is it? I've never heard that word to describe. And he'd say, you will not remember it. And I was like, oh, okay. But basically, the Retsina is such a cultural beverage that if you grew up in Greece drinking it, that's quality wine. And regardless of whether it's oxidized or it's super tannic or what we in California may consider unbalanced, the quality really being in the eye of the beholder. Because I learned in school, this is what squeaky clean, here's quality wine. And then having the experience in Greece, oh wow, the world is very different. It's a super cool experience. Also, it was biodynamic. The horns, and I was working in the vineyard with Albanians. And if Dimitri felt like I wasn't in a good mood, if I didn't have the right energy, you couldn't go to the winery. And I learned how to roll a cigarette. It was with one of my good buddies. But anyway, so I came back. I did not continue on with my good friend. That was a difficult discussion. And then I got a job at a really innovative marketing winery in Paso Robles called Four Vines. And have you guys heard of Four Vines?
Only because of this podcast.
Yeah, in my head is like 14 hands.
Okay, not associated with 14 hands. But, it was really out there marketing. The wine club was the Zin Bitches. And the winemaker, Christian, he wore like an all-white suit on St. Patrick's Day, and you could drink Tecate. But I got into the marketing side. The Peasant was one of their kind of more famous wines, and it has a lithograph of a peasant dumping a barrel of wine down, and it says, temperance, like chastity, is its own punishment. I was like, so cool. I didn't know you could market wine like that. So then I went up I got kind of my first real job with Diageo up in Napa on the grower relations team. So the big wine businesses will have kind of a procurement focused team that's just for grape buying. What goes into a ton of grapes for the $100 bottle of George de la Tour versus what goes into the ton of grapes for the A by Acacia, $12. And really interesting in terms of that. And then I moved into the vineyard management side, managing some hillside vineyards for Diageo for the Napa North properties and speaking Spanish. And first entrepreneurial venture was down here on the Central Coast. I moved back down from Napa to Paso, San Luis Obispo area, and got really into building distribution. How do you build distribution? And so that brand is called Rabble. A rabble is a disorderly mob pushing the public to think different. I say that every day. And I learned how to build distribution, which I didn't really know how to do before. And then started the company WarRoom 5 years ago. We're all for wine, wine for all, and it's a broad slogan. But essentially our focus is acquiring heritage wine brands and then focusing on what customers love about that brand. And sometimes that's a wine style or a founder story or an appellation. Sometimes it's very difficult to find out what customers love, and you have to create something, put the spine into the jellyfish type deal. And we have 6+ brands, each with a unique brand proposition and wine style. And that's the gist. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you said there was a story behind the name WarRoom. Did that come about? Yeah.
I had a real painful exit from Rabble, and the WarRoom started in like a garage with a dossier. That's the real story. But initially, our slogan was waging war against big wine. We're fighting it out. Ultimately, we've changed that. We want to be building something, not tearing something down. And you can see with Rabble, like the mob, now really focusing on positivity, positive emotions into the world. Lapis Luna is our largest brand. We're trying to inspire people to reach for the moon. Bonnie Doon is probably our most well-known brand. It's all about wine exploration, turning people onto new grape varieties and stewarding on a really charismatic founder there, Randall, who I think we'll talk more about. I'm a huge Randall Graham fan. Skyfall, our Washington brand, is about resiliency. It's very difficult to grow grapes in Washington State. The Big Red Monster is our Paso brand. It's about empowerment. Slay it is the slogan. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. The WarRoom.
That's awesome.
Nice. And then you have one more brand, don't you?
Bubble Butt.
We can't forget.
I forget?
Yeah.
I love that you. Yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't send samples of Bubble Butt, and I love that you bring that up. Bubble Butt is our wine seltzer. It's a cheeky concept. The slogan is "Nice Can," and it's one of my favorite products that we've made. It took 3 years to figure out how to make a wine seltzer and then make a world-class wine seltzer. It has been a challenge in terms of the customer education piece, but in terms of great product, Bubble Butt there's a Bubble Butt jingle, and the slogan is or the logo, I don't know if I have a sticker here, is an upside down heart, like a butt.
Yep.
Do you get criticism for having completely sold out? Or is this the new version of not selling out?
It's interesting you ask that. I don't think of myself as a sellout. I don't think it's
good. Yeah, we don't either.
I'm all about spreading the passion of wine. And one of the things that Cal Poly really did instill in me was the business of wine. My Professor Keith Patterson, who passed away, it was all about the business of wine. And the Davis students, they can identify the grape variety by the leaf petiole, but we'll teach you how to make money in this industry. And then when I got my first big wine job with Diageo, I really didn't know what I was doing. So I would come back down. I would meet with Professor Patterson at the porch in Santa Margarita, and he would help me through what is this business of wine? So getting back to your sellout question, I'm very focused on the business of wine, rooted in the passion. But I think Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy, he says, never follow your passion, but always bring it with you. Is that
nice.
Mike Rowe fans out there? Where I would combat somebody who's saying, you're sold out. I think that we're trying to delight customers, and whether that customer wants 12 days skin contact orange wine, native yeast fermentation, relatively esoteric, or a bottle of Hallmark Channel love, very different customers there. We're going to create a world-class product for that customer and delight them. And then we have brands for each customer segment. Does that make sense?
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. How does the guy here that scared my dog and my wife, and Billy has one, how does he fit into
the Bonnie Doon Alien? Yeah, okay, so Bonnie Doon is our most well-known brand, certainly the one with the most heritage, deep, rich heritage, founded in the early 80s by just an icon in the industry and an idol of mine, Randall Graham. And the Alien, Randall found these laws in Chateauneuf-du-Pape from the 50s prohibiting alien spacecraft from landing in the vineyards. There was a mayor back in the day in Rhone that was very nervous about these spacecraft landing. Apparently there were lots of UFO sightings at the time, and the French refer to UFOs as cigar volants, or flying cigars. There's several different types of flying unidentified objects, but the one that these laws were around are cigar volants, flying cigars. He created a brand, a label, poking fun at this. And it's just an icon within California wine. I learned about the flying cigar volant in school and Randall. So the alien that you have behind you is our fun play on the point of sales, Bonnie, who I think is terrifying dogs and young children all over the world. We've sent out over 1,000 aliens. And if any of your listeners would like one, feel free. They can email me. You send them out all the time. They're really fun. So I'm serious. If you want an alien, shoot me an email.
Nice. Well, let's dive in a little bit more, and then we can get to the wines eventually, Brady. But on Randall Graham, can you tell us a little bit about how he became one of these icons? Like, he's also a person that I look up to in a way because of his Roan Rangers time and really being a proponent for varieties that aren't mainstream.
So let me think on this. Randall may disagree with me in some, because he's really about the wine. But for me, Randall really opened doors in terms of what new grape varieties, new flavors of wine, and breaking down the pretension of wine. He was a huge proponent of screw caps. He held a funeral for the cork for Monsieur Terry Bouchon, the Mr. Cork Puller, with a hearse and a coffin and a body made out of cork, and just really clever. But I'd never tasted a really savory wine before Bonnie Doon, or a super floral acid-driven rosé before Bonnie Doon. So I think Randall and the Bonnie Doon brand and team have really been this pioneer in terms of wine exploration, exploring unique flavors. And so that's really what, when WarRoom, when we acquired the Bonnie Doon brand in the very beginning of 2020, there were many different wines being made. And so we really wanted to focus down, but still really steward the brand. What do customers love about this brand? And we found it's in Rhone varieties. All roads lead to Rhone. We're big Grenache fans. And then that wine exploration, which is really well embodied by alien spacecraft flying around trying to land in vineyards. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I had looked into it a little bit more, and I've heard him talk about cigars before, and I was unclear, and then I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But what I do like how he not only planted these vines to introduce them to people, but he's stuck to it for so long. And it's not just like a flash in the pan, or he thinks he can make money off of it. He just literally thinks they're great grapes, and they really express nature and how the energy of the place really well. I think that's hard to find.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right on. Also, like, really minimalistic intervention, native yeast fermentations, no sulfur, pre-fermentation, really expression of terroir, of the place.
And he's been doing this for like over 30 years, where everybody nowadays is talking about this, but he kept doing it, and people are like, why are you doing it like this? Just put a ton of oak on your big red wines.
Okay, so
he was like, no.
When we first were talking about doing a Bonnie Doon orange wine, skin contact wine, Randall said, Andrew, Bonnie Doon is either 20 years too early or 20 years too late. Insane, because I'm like really doing orange wine, which is such a testament, right? He's either very early or late. So we launched an orange wine last year. We'll taste it together. You guys have some of the last bottles of the 21 vintage in existence. Yeah, I'm going to taste the shine, I like that, with you guys.
Oh, nice.
So yes, to wine exploration. And ideally we continue that legacy on to younger wine drinkers, right? Bringing people in to seeing unique grape varieties, unique flavor profiles, higher acid, more floral, aromatic wines.
Why don't we were planning on tasting them all at the end, but why don't we just taste them as we go, brand by brand? Maybe.
Sure. So that's a good idea.
You want to start with
Bonnie Doon then?
Yeah, let's start with the orange there.
All right, cool. For those listeners who have never heard of an orange wine, this is an emerging category of wine of skin contact fermentation. So there's no oranges in here, despite it being in the name. An orange wine is fermenting white grapes like you would red. So instead of pressing the juice to the tank, like we would normally ferment a white off of the skins. We're fermenting these skins on, or we're fermenting this juice on its skins. There's predominantly 2 grapes in this bottle that you're tasting. This is the 21 vintage Bonnie Doon Cigar Orange, the orange cigar. It's about half Grenache Gris, half Grenache Blanc, and a splash of orange muscat. Fermented in rotary fermenters. So there's these paddles, so you can get this really gentle extraction, no sulfur pre-fermentation. It's a non-Saccharomyces yeast for the grape nerds out there. Basically, all of the decisions were around how do we minimize astringency, but still bring out that structure. I just think the nose is beautiful. Tangerine, apricot. It's a genuinely an orange color just from the skin contact. Super aromatic. And then on the palate, there's just bursts of acidity, but then there's that structure, that grit. Get a little bit of tannin, which comes from the skin contact. The finish goes on and on. This is about 10.5%, 11% alcohol. I think the future is orange. I think in 10 years, you'll walk into a grocery store and you'll see the red, white, pink, and orange section. Ideally, Bonnie Doon is the pioneer, the benchmark of orange wine. We made a little over 3,000 cases of this. And it's sold out in 70 days, less than 3 months. So this year, we're actually just getting ready to bottle. We're blending later this afternoon. We're making a little north of 10,000 cases, which is an investment, a bet. But we do believe in orange wine. And for your listeners, I would encourage you to taste an orange wine. What's particularly interesting about the category is it's a blue ocean. There really isn't a specific set of qualities that people look for in an orange wine like they would a Chardonnay or Sauvignon Blanc. So we are trying to define that blue ocean with the Bonnie Doon Cigar Orange.
Yeah, what I think is really interesting about it is you don't come across even some muscat sometimes, white Rhone varietals that are lower ABV. They tend to always be like so hot, so high. So it's really cool to get some of those notes. Also, I think it works well because a little less ripe. It's like it has that savory note mixed with some citrus and the elevated muscat. That's really nice.
Really good point on the savoriness. That's a characteristic of all the Bonnie Doon wines, that kind of umami characteristic. A lot of that comes from extended lees contact, not secondary, but extended lees. Randall says lees is more, right? Like lots of puns.
That's a good
how
one.
long? When you say extended, how long is extended?
On the orange, we're bottling everything now.
Yeah.
It's January 9th today. So we're basically talking about lees contact for another 30, 60 days and not even a ton of stirring, but that extended lees contact, the yeast cells can break open. They release these manoproteins that coat your tongue similarly to sugar and bring that kind of umami characteristic. But no malolactic here. That was something we really looked at. It has all of the tart green apple acidity, that malic acid.
That explains that acid pop.
I've had a lot of orange wines where the tannins seem like just misplaced in the wine. And this is not that. Really well integrated and only provides structure.
I haven't tasted it in a while, actually. Oh, that's delicious. And this is like a $15 bottle of wine. So it's available. We're all for wine for all. This is it. Accessible.
Nice. All right.
Should we jump into the Cigar Volant? You want to do the red?
Yeah, we can do that.
You have another
quickly.
Do we stay with
No, I think it's fine, Brady, to move on to this. I was just going to say, I'm excited. Then we can try the Sauvignon Blanc after.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I thought we were going to go white to red at first.
The idea of doing brand, though.
Yeah, let's do that.
Kind
of
I agree. On Dune, because you'll get a sense of the thread. Ideally, with all of our brands, from a customer standpoint, if you love one of them, you will love all of them. So if you like the Bonnie Doon orange wine, you're going to love the pink wine. You're going to love the red. You're going to love the Pic Pool. I'll send you guys some Pic Pool after this. Similarly, if you love the Skyfall Cabernet, you're going to love the Skyfall Merlot. Really trying to have that kind of that building trust within the brand style for the customer. I don't want to dump the orange though. Okay, so this is brand new. This is being released right now. This is the 21 vintage Bonnie Doon Le Cigare Volant, the red. This is a Grenache blend. It's about 65% Grenache, about 20% Syrah, 15 Cinsault, and then just a splash of Petite Syrah. It's cool climate vineyards here in the Central Coast, predominantly Monterey. And this is the 37th vintage. I think the Grenache is just such a star here. This comes from a vineyard right near Arroyo Seco. And it has, go ahead.
I was going to say, how is it made? Do you guys do any carbonic or anything to contain some of that juiciness, or is it all really just...
Yeah, there's no carbonic here. There is no carbonic. But that's a good question. It does have that like fruit characteristic.
A little bit on the nose. Yeah, that's cool if it doesn't.
I think all the lots are getting picked in the like 21 to 23 bricks range. No extended skin contact. The little bit of Syrah in here is a star. Randall and about weapons grade Syrah. Cool climate Syrah. Bring that pepper and that savory characteristic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I should have put a little more of a chill on it. I actually had mine about room temp. I think that would really round out some of that savoriness. But you can definitely see a parallel in between the styles. It's great. And the acid's also really much more balancing than expecting for a 14.4 wine.
Cool. Really cool. Randall and Nicole.
And the color is incredible.
It's a pretty color, huh?
Yeah, dimly lit room. That's really pretty.
So we can geek out. So it's got like the purple flowers, lilac, lavender, violets, and into the fruit, like boysenberry. I get this like blue fruit characteristic, but then the cool climate, Grenache, and particularly Syrah bring the white pepper, so this peppery characteristic. It's a compound called rotundone in the grape skins, and I just think that this wine spans the whole range. Whether you know nothing about wine or you're a geek and a half, there's something for you.
Yeah.
Bonnie Doon.
Agreed. I'm happy you mentioned the purple flowers too, because when you very first put it up to your nose, you get that, and then you get through that layer for sure.
And again, $15 here. So these are not excluding wines. Yeah, the 21 vintage. So that's just going into the market right now. Bonnie Doon, the largest. So we just from a production standpoint, we make about 15,000 cases of the 21 cigar Volant, just to give you an idea. Something unique. WarRoom, we don't own any vineyards. We don't own a facility. We buy grapes and do what are called custom crush contracts. So we will we'll crush somewhere around 1,800, 2,000 tons of grapes in California, and we'll send that to various facilities. And then Nicole, our winemaker, is the winemaker for all the WarRoom brands. She'll oversee, she'll go there. It's all her protocol. It's a unique wine business model than I think most customers know, but it allows us to keep costs of goods really low. And then we pass that on to the customer. So I like to think we're really competitive pricing across the board.
On the Bonnie Doon, though, some of that does come from the Bonnie Doon vineyard, though, for some of the fruit.
No. The Bonnie Doon vineyard, alas, passed away in the 90s. It died of ear stones.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, a long time ago. And Randall has handpicked and through trial and error found some of his favorite regions in terms of planting and grafting contracts. And during our acquisition, that was a big part of the due diligence, just making sure that we could continue with the same exact fruit sourcing so that the style wouldn't change. But yeah, that's actually interesting. I've heard that before. Some people, the vineyard has not been in existence for almost 20 years now.
Yeah, you hear his name and you read about him planting it and you just assume. So it's interesting, but it's nice to see him still. If he works with these other partners, he's overseen and makes sure they farm to his specifications.
And Randall's the director, quite involved in vineyard selection and all the final blends. But it's unique grape varieties, right? These are not varieties that are commonly available. It's Tino and Picpoul and Claret Blanche and Grenache Blanc, Grenache Gris. Relatively unique stuff, Cinsault. So everything is done through planting or grafting contracts. Yeah.
Nice. Which wine brand should we move on to next?
You want to do Lapis Luna? We can go back to white.
Yeah, I have my Coravin in the Sauvignon Blanc,
nice.
so let's do that.
Okay, so Lapis Luna, this is a brand that was launched in the 90s. Let me show you the original label. When we acquire a brand, we'll usually change up to 3 things. Like the brand position, meaning the price point or the packaging. So the brand position, sometimes we'll change the distribution network, and the third being the juice or the sourcing. So like with Bonnie Doon, we really brought focus to the SKU selection, and we've changed the packaging slightly. But with Lapis Luna, it was a full revolution in packaging. You can see the old versus the new label here. Reach for the moon.
Yeah.
So this Lapis Luna Sauvignon Blanc is all from a single vineyard in Mendocino. This is from the Polly Ranch. Shout out to the Pollys, Jake and Frost and Bill and Dave and the crew. I love this Sauvignon Blanc. It has all the tropical characteristics, but it's not cloying. It's not candied. I think you get the pineapple and the guava, but then it has great acid. This is a pretty windy site. Thicker skins, which adds to some structure here. Really bright acidity. I think it can bridge the gap between the California style or the New Zealand. And then the artwork for Lapis Luna is all from the early 1600s, from a book called Pia Desiria, loosely translates to Loving Desires. Each label shows a faceless hero reaching for the moon. And then on the back, she's holding a burning heart with a message. Those who do not move do not feel their chains. You got to break free. The perfect time to start never arrives. Think about that one after a glass. Like, you got to...
I feel like I do get that like candied fruit. It just like attacks the palate, but then the acid comes in so quickly after.
Yes.
Like I was like taken aback a little bit. I was like, holy crap. And then it lifted away. It's really nice.
And then I think that
I don't drink a lot of Sauvignon Blanc. Billy does.
There's some weight to it. There's some structure. There's no oak. It's all stainless, but I think this area, a little thicker skins, gives it that nice structure. There's some grip there. And we sell around 8,000-9,000 cases of this Lapis Luna Sauvignon Blanc. Predominantly in the spring and the summer.
Yeah, and I think there is that kind of like warm, kind of candied fruit, but then I got a little bit of herbaceousness towards the end that kind of reminded me a little bit of like Chilean Sauvignon Blanc, but then it rounds out with that ripe fruit. So it's really
absolutely
cool mix.
Very good. This retails for about $12, $13. So again, not awesome. Expensive and accessible to all. Let's go to the Lapis Reserve, a Cabernet Franc. This is of a new release for us. Cabernet Franc is delicious. If your listeners haven't tried a Cabernet Franc, they definitely should. But Chinon would probably be the investment, I would imagine. So our Cabernet Franc comes from 4 different sites. About half of it is in Lake County, which the Cabernet Franc, it's Dave Rosenthal's vineyard, and it's Cab Franc. It's got a little bit of the herbaceousness, great structure, and really nice aromatics. Then we've splurged on some Napa Valley Cabernet Franc, which brings like dark, dusty fruit, big structure, concentration, an increased cost of goods. And then we're blending in 2 non-Cabernet Franc varieties in here, a little bit of Petit Verdot and a little bit of Merlot. Both of those kind of bring a little bit unique characteristics. They really help lower the costs as well. I keep trying to make this an investment piece. So we're calling it a California appellation. So it may be weird to think it's the reserve tier. Why would it be California? But that just lets us be really and open in where is the fruit sourcing coming from, so that we can blend Lake County, Napa, Paso, and Lodi all together in one bottle. This is a $19-20 bottle. and we made a little over 3,000 cases. I think this is a pretty cool label here, right? So our faceless hero is embracing. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on here as they're trying to reach for the moon. And then hard times always reveal true friends.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah, no, to your point about the best fruit from all over the state, in our last episode where we talked about Tim from Penfolds, we talked about that and how like even Grange sources from all over South Australia and
wow.
Yeah, no, you're trying to make this one, so that makes sense.
To be on after LaGrange is on. That's awesome. I opened up in 05, I don't know, maybe a year ago, and it was just fantastic. It was like bin 11, or it was one of the bins. Yeah, it was just some serious wines.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, Penfolds are some great wines. But yeah, no, it's really interesting. I like having Cab Franc front and center, and it really shines when having a little bit more of that, the body and a little bit of the color from the Merlot and Pinot, or not. No.
The kind of continual, like the varietal characteristic is usually associated with some greenness, some vegetal characteristics, which is nice, but we're keeping that in small doses here. I think that there is a little bit of that vegetal characteristic, but I'd say it's like more red pyrazine, if that makes sense. It's more like there's the dark fruit, but not overly green.
Saying like I guess for me, pepper.
Spicy. Yeah, I was thinking like ripe green, like lighter green, like closer to a pepper. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you guys are wine guys, huh?
Billy's a wine guy. Billy's the wine guy.
But I love doing this, the tastings. It's really good fun. Okay, so just to recap for your listeners, we've done the Bonnie Doon Cigar Orange, or the Bonnie Doon orange wine, which is skin contact, predominantly Grenache Blanc, Grenache Gris. Then we did a Grenache, the Cigar Volant, relatively obscure, higher acid. Then we've gone to Lapis Luna. We did a Mendocino Sauvignon Blanc, and now a Cabernet Franc from 4 areas in California.
Yeah.
Oh, the Cab Franc.
Let's do the Skyfall.
Okay, cool. We'll go to Washington State.
Yeah.
So Skyfall, this is a newer brand. We're just relaunching now with the new package and vineyard sourcing. I can show you past and present here. So you can see it was a very classic label, and we're going with resilience. Bonnie Doon is wine exploration. Lapis Luna is inspiration, reach for the moon. Skyfall, Washington State, is a very difficult area to grow grapes. There's essentially no soil. The soil all eroded away in glacial floods. There's dust that has blown in. There's fires and maybe 6 inches of rain. Just some comparison, like Napa got like north of 10 inches of rain in the last week, which isn't normal, but hardly any water in eastern Washington, frosts and snow, and yet from this harsh growing climate comes the beauty of Mother Nature, resilience. Skyfall, the spirit of Washington State.
Do you sell these labels blown up? You should, if you don't. It's like Chick-fil-A selling their sauce in containers.
We give them.
You would make a killing.
We give a lot away. We have lots of these labels and posters and stand-ups. That's a good point. We have not been selling them, but we've been giving them away.
It's all original art, though, for the labels?
It is, although many of our brands is original public domain artwork. So it's created 200 years ago, and then we'll tweak it or focus on something to make it specific to the brand. The Cabernet in Washington, I think, has this really unique blue fruit characteristic, blueberry, boysenberry. There's a little bit of Merlot and Syrah in here as well. Most of this comes from the Columbia Valley, and then the Merlot's from Walla, but like blueberry. More structure, more tannin here. This is a little bit higher price point. This is going to be like $15, $16 retail.
Whoa.
Oh man. Skyfall, the spirit of Washington State.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I always have one of the first wines I've had that I could remember or recalled and tried to find again was Syrah from, or they call it a Shiraz from Washington State. But the value,
do you remember which brand
the quality
it was?
ratio. It was a Two Vines Shiraz made by Columbia
cool.
Valley. Yeah, it was a 2008. I was in college. I thought that was cool.
That was an aha moment for you. For sure.
Yeah, it was.
I think Syrah does that a lot, where it's, I didn't know wine can taste like that.
This was in like 2012 too. It was like our senior year. For some reason, two buddies and I would always just go to the grocery store and grab a bottle of wine and then watch a TV show.
Cool.
And just drink it. So I would just walk around trying to find the oldest bottle at the grocery store for whatever reason. And that was the oldest one at the time.
Oh, that's a cool exercise.
And then I was like,
I've never done that. I go frequently to grocery outlet. I think grocery outlet's like this really interesting spot to see. You find the discount wines, and so what's in there. But I haven't ever looked for the oldest. That's a very good. I'm going to try that, Billy.
Yeah, this goes to show it wasn't a great grocery store either, because like they didn't have anything that was actually.
That's how most people buy wine,
years,
though, right? They buy it in the grocery store. It's consumed within a couple hours.
I had a similar sort of Syrah experience. I would buy wine from Trader Joe's, and I just started paying attention to what was in it. And I noticed I had 4 wines in a row that I really liked, and they all had Syrah in common. So I was like, I like Syrah. That was a big thing.
I love Syrah. We would make it if we... Yeah. There's a joke. There's a Syrah joke. What's the difference between syphilis and Syrah? You can get rid of a case of syphilis. Like Syrah's so difficult to sell.
Because
you can't sell
to sell. Yeah. Which is funny, because I think I've heard many people over the years say if you blind people on wines, they'll choose a Syrah a lot of the time because it's great. But if you tell them to pick based on the name, they won't do it. So
it's so interesting. Bonnie Doon had a Syrah, Le Pousse, that was just delicious. But for some reason or another, customers do not buy Syrah. Maybe that will change.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well,
we get Tannat in this Slay.
Oh, yeah. Right? Okay. So let's taste. We can taste the Big Red Monster. This is our Paso Robles brand.
It kind of excites me.
The Big Red Monster. This is Cab with Tannat and Petite Syrah. This is our only non-vintage brand. We found that a customer who's buying a wine called the Big Red Monster is much more interested in the flavor and the boldness than the vintage. This is a brand that was launched in 2005. We relaunched it 2 or 3 years ago. So Paso is my favorite growing region. You get the big diurnal temperature difference, right? The difference between the hot and the coldest part of the day. That gives you big flavor and still keeps the acid. For your listeners, they can remember the word diurnal I had a PowerPoint slide with Princess Di and a urinal on it, and the room was just like
not sacrilegious. That's perfect.
The room didn't laugh at all. But you'll never forget it. Diurnal, the diurnal temperature difference. Paso, we're worried about frost protection at night and heat stroke or sunburn during the day. But then the cost of the land, it's such great value. There are $1 million acres in Napa now. Sonoma's 150 to probably like 300 or so, and Paso, depending on where you are, is $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 an acre. Well, we don't own any acreage. We buy fruit, and I just think that consumers can find such great value in Paso.
Yeah, I was going to say the other wine region, aside from Washington State, where you can find really high quality value red wines, is Paso would be the next one that comes to mind.
Yeah, sure. Okay, Cabernet, 2 different vineyards, both east side, a little north. The Tannat is a gem in the cellar every year. Tannat, it's like squid ink. It's super dark. It brings structure.
Yeah.
It brings tannin and color. And then the Petite Syrah just doubles down on that dark fruit. Big 15% alcohol here. We did the Silver Oak style bell die cut, the proclamation of Paso Robles, slay it, empowerment. This is St. George slaying the dragon. Yeah, nice. They have a lot of fun with the branding.
So how much Tannat is in this one?
I think about like a little north of 10% Tannat in here. It's just north of 75% Cabernet, so we can label it varietally Cabernet. And if I remember, I think that this one was like 14% Tannat and 10 or 11 Petite Syrah. So enough to be dangerous.
I love adding. I love Tannat in there. Go ahead, Billy. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so I think what's really interesting about these wines in general, and then what you're doing is, I don't think a lot of people do think about the business side of wine. I know before I joined like the WSET program, I had read a book called Wine Wars. I don't know if you've
I have
read
not
it.
read Wine Wars, actually.
I highly recommend it. There's actually a Wine Wars 2. I would probably start there because it's more up to date. But it basically, he talks about this like eternal battle between terroirists, as he calls them, or he might call them terrorists. I don't know. I read it, hear what I think. And then like other people who are just wine proponents. And his main goal is the terroirists are saying like, you should always make a wine that's like pure, it should be from where it's from and tell that story and not mess with it. And the other people are like, we want to make wine that's affordable and approachable to everybody. It's if you keep making it so esoteric and unattainable, nobody's going to drink any wine. Like we want to have wine that you drink on a regular basis, and then we want to have wine where you can tell a story, and that can also overlap. And I think your wines do an interesting part of overlapping between the two, because there is a story and a through line, but they're also approachable and affordable.
Thank you. We really try to focus it on the customer, because I do think we have a wine for those terroirists. Depending on where the customer is in their wine journey, we have something for them. As long as they're drinking wine, I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you're labeling this wine that we're drinking here Cabernet, and then there's Tannat in it, which I haven't seen Tannat in a wine in Paso. I drink a lot of Paso wine. I just have never seen Tannat. And we have a lot of it in Virginia, where I just came from. And actually, one of my favorite wines from there is 65% Tannat, which is why I was asking how much was in it. But I think, to Billy's point, you're able to provide a wine that a lot of people at the table are going to love, and they can turn the bottle around and explore something new.
What's really Tannat like?
Yeah, I love that.
Virginia.
What's Tannat? What's Tannat like? Exactly. Yeah.
I'm just joking.
I'll clip that. That'll be the mission of the podcast. Bring the case sale of Tannat up like 10% in the US.
Awesome.
Nah.
It wouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the variety I'm gonna die on that hill for.
They're like the mainstay grape varieties, but I think you can expand beyond those by blending and by being transparent in what's going in. But you notice we did not put the variety, or we didn't put the percentage breakdown on that. You asked, what is it? We list them in order, but we don't put the percentage, just so that we can keep consistency over vintages and bottlings. And then we have actually swapped out the Petit Syrah with Petit Verdot in the past, but we're really focused on that super consistent flavor profile so that a customer could trust, oh, I liked that when I tried it a year ago, I'm going to like it now. And I remember liking the Cabernet. Oh, I'll like the Zin as well. There's a big red monster Zinfandel.
Amazing. So Brady, I think, first came across you. I've seen your wines in the grocery store. I didn't know they were yours, obviously. With the Wine Enthusiast 40 Under 40, how has that experience been? Was it a surprise? Did it come out of the blue?
I felt I was honored, but I felt a lot of pressure from that. The wine business is hard, as you guys know. I don't know, I kind of like some anonymity and like lowering the pressure. Matt Kettman came up here, had a beer. I wouldn't say we're friends, but I love hanging out with him.
And Matt Kettman's the editor for Central Coast. He reviews all the wines on the Central Coast for wine enthusiasts.
And he's just a cool dude to hang out with. We met at the porch, and I probably told him more than I should have. And then, I don't know, like a month later, he sent me a note. He said, hey, I just want to let you know I nominated you for this. And I said, I'm flattered. Thank you. And then, I don't know, a few months later, I got the announcement, and it was in the heat. It was in the heart of the pandemic. So all of the photo shoots and everything were done in full lockdown. The photographer had us set up our phones or an iPad, and I wanted to wear a mask in my shot to be like, when we look back and they're like, absolutely not. People, they need to see your face. But it was a wonderful experience, and we're big wine enthusiast fans. But candidly, I felt pressure of now like people think it's a success. It doesn't always mean that it's a success.
Well, either way, congrats.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
And you're living in SLO, and you said you love Paso. What are your 3 under the radar producers in Paso that you like really love what they're doing. Wow. You think they're kind of the same ethos.
Some shout outs. Okay, hold on. Let me just.
You can also diss producers that you really hate what they're doing.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
That's right.
Okay, let me think about this.
And while you think about it, we can note that Brady just called slow SLO.
Yeah, that's true. I wasn't going to call you out, Brady. That means that you don't know. That's okay, though. That's okay.
Oh, did I say SLO?
People just say slow. Look, but that's okay.
I'm as far away from the culture as I'm just trying to osmosis some of it into me. I've been there once.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome anytime. Okay, so one producer that I just love and really trust the quality will just knock socks off is Herman Story, the winemaker.
Nice.
From. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are familiar. That's a favorite of mine.
The ugly people on the labels, right?
Yeah, the late bloomer, right? It's
late bloomer.
Some of the labels have the childhood pictures of the wine club. But I just particularly love those wines. And if I'm like out and about and I see that on the bottle list, that's a go-to for me if I'm splurging a little bit, because they're quite a bit pricier than our wines. Yeah. Another winery that I don't think needs more press, but I do just really respect and recommend a lot is Hope Family. I just think that those wines really over-deliver. It's one that I have a chip on my shoulder. Oh, we got to grow bigger, faster. And then just because of my past, I got to give a nod to Tooth and Nail. I think people would be very surprised to hear me say that, but I want anybody trying to make it in the wine business to be successful. I think it's just a very difficult industry. So even someone, or even if there has been issues, I wish great success to anybody trying to make it in the business. So those would be my three.
Nice. Yeah, I think Tooth and Nail I could see you in that tasting room. Just your style and kind of approach and the like storytelling and stuff.
That's very ironic.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining. I think those are all of my questions. I'm now going to go out and recommend these wines. I'm excited to actually dig into them. I'm happy we filmed this on a Friday.
I'll send you guys some Bubble Butt too. We didn't touch on Bubble Butt, but we created a wine seltzer. It's delicious. It took 3 years to make the stuff. Champagne level carbonation, burger.
I actually meant to ask, what makes it for those who don't know, a lot of the seltzers are just like carbonated water with miscellaneous ethanol pumped in different sources. So what makes a wine different from, say, any of the other ones? A wine-based seltzer.
Seltzer is malt-based, so no grape juice associated. But there's like the spritzer category, and people would debate me on this, but I would say that a spritzer has added fruit juice and sweetness. There's usually some residual sugar, whereas a wine seltzer is a wine base and no sweetness. So it's wine and then seltzer water. And ours is particularly delicious. It was featured on the Wine Enthusiast podcast, actually, which I was flattered on. I was flattered to be featured, but we're basically fermenting like we would be for traditional sparkling, and then adding water, 15 to 20%, depending. We lower the alcohol to 8.4% alcohol. By lowering the alcohol, that allows us to bring the carbonation level up to champagne level carbonation and avoid some sparkling taxation, pass that right on to the customer. So basically what makes Bubble Butt so unique is it's champagne level carbonation, but 8.5% alcohol. And it's delicious.
That's awesome.
Cheeky. It's a nice can.
We're going to have to go out and find some of that. But thank you so much again for joining.
Thanks, guys. Andrew. And if anybody wants to send me an email, my email is andrew@warroomcellars.com. I'm glad to send out posters or stickers. I'm always glad to have people reach out.
This guy.
Yeah. If you want an alien.
Yeah. The alien.
Send me an email. I really will send you an alien.
My wife will send you my alien. Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Andrew. Appreciate it.
About what you guys are doing. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.
To check out our current offerings and to sign up for the Vint platform, find us at www.vint.co. That's www.vint.co. For questions, comments, or feedback on the Vint podcast, please email us at support@vint.co. Vint and VV Markets are offering securities pursuant to Regulation A. Our offering circular as amended can be found on the SEC website. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Investments such as those on the Vint platform are speculative and involve substantial risks to consider before investing. We may provide communication that may contain certain forward-looking statements that are subject to various risks and uncertainties. Information provided in any communications, including this podcast, is not legal, business, or tax advice. All prospective investors should consult a legal, tax, or business advisor concerning the subject matter of any communications and any offering.